Michael Cassidy is a naval pilot who works as a trainer at the Meridian Naval Air Station as well as a maintenance test pilot. He is challenging Michael Guest for the 3rd District Republican nomination. And Michael Cassidy, welcome very much to Mississippi Insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. Why are you the better candidate in this runoff election?
Well, I think I'm the better candidate because I'm going to be an actual conservative fighter for the district. That my opponent, he's had a lot of not conservative votes, voted for the January 6th Commission with Benny Thompson, voted to give Planned Parenthood over $1 billion of funding, and it's given over $53 billion to Ukraine.
How about the inflation rate? We're talking about a staggering, I think, 8.5%.
Yeah.
What steps should we take as a nation to get this under control, and how would you help customers with these, the sky-high costs? I mean, we're talking gas, groceries, rent, everything.
Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to stop spending. So just like my opponent wanted to give $50 billion to another country, when we've got people who can't afford baby formula here, we got people that can't afford groceries, that money needs to be spent with America. And so that's one thing. We also have to take control over the Federal Reserve and not let them continue to print trillions of dollars that goes to Wall Street, that goes to these big corporations. It's got to, no nation has survived printing money, so we have to have control over that. All
right. What do you think about the gas tax holiday? Something you would support?
It's something that I would have to look at more closely. That issue hasn't come up with us so much. Reducing taxes is always something that I'd be in favor of, so I definitely have a positive initial impression of it.
All right. We are waiting on the Supreme Court's decision on Mississippi's case on abortion. Should Congress play a role in determining a new abortion law, and if the court overturns, of course, Roe versus Wade?
I think that it would be great if the Roe v. Wade is overturned by the Supreme Court, and that's something that Mississippi can be very proud of, that we're the reason why it looks like Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. So the pro-life movement, it looks like we're getting a whole lot of momentum. That's why I've pledged I'm never going to support even a dime of money going to Planned Parenthood. My opponent thinks otherwise, and that's really one of the bigger differences between us in the race.
What about in case of rape or incest, do you believe that should be taken off the books?
That's a very tough question. I do. I think that since life begins at conception, we have to protect all life. That means protecting the life of the mother as well. My opponent feels differently, but I think that if you want to be logically consistent, you have to have the position of really only to save the life of the mother.
The nation as a whole has seen an increase of, I've got here, 35% in the firearm homicide rate. Now, our state has the highest death rate right now from firearms in the nation per capita. What measures do you support to address this?
Well, I don't like the way that the question is framed, because it is framed in a way that would take away people's Second Amendment rights, the law-abiding citizens, their rights. So I'm against all of the red flag laws that are being proposed right now or have been proposed. My opponent, he's kind of wishy-washy. He says you have to see what else is in the bill to decide whether you're going to vote for a red flag law or against it. And that's.
But what would you do?
I would, in terms of, we need to focus on mental health. It's not a gun problem. It's not a law-abiding citizen problem. I was at Virginia Tech during the school shooting there back in 2017. And the person who did that shooting, he was known to the community. He was known to Virginia Tech as a mentally ill person, and yet they kept on letting him out on the street. He should have been taken for a much more serious evaluation. It's not, it is a culture issue. It is not a gun problem.
What about we've now seen that the Senate has just passed a bill recently that expands a background check for gun buyers that are 18 to 21 years old. It prevents people convicted of domestic abuse from owning a firearm. And it incentivizes states to pass their own red flag laws. Is this a bill you would support?
This is a bill that I would 100% be opposed to, and that's the difference between my opposition and me, is that if it has a red flag law in it, then that is a slippery slope to gun confiscation and the erasure of the Second Amendment. And that we can't stand for that as conservatives. My opponent, because he's not really that conservative, he is okay with the idea of a red flag law being in a bill.
All right. The House Select Committee on the January 6th attack on Congress is in its second week now of the hearings. Do you support the panel's work, and should former President Trump and his key advisors be held responsible for this attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election?
Well, again, I'll reject the manner in which the question is asked. I think that we
and
certainly—
why so?
Because you're saying the election needs to be looked at. We need to see, that's part of my platform, is that we need to look at what actually happened with the 2020 election. We've seen some of the states that they've done some investigations. We need to do that more at a federal level, but that needs to be done not in the manner of the January 6th Commission or the January 6th Committee. It's a witch hunt. It's not. It is a purely partisan event. The bill that my opponent voted for, it called the events of January 6th a domestic terrorist attack. That's not nonpartisan. We need to figure out in a nonpartisan manner what happened.
Well, it is a bipartisan committee. I mean, you know, Liz Cheney, yeah, we know that. But we also know that the people that that we heard from yesterday are Republicans who were on the front line there, the witnesses saying what happened. They were being pressured by the president.
When you talk about it being bipartisan and talking about Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney to make it bipartisan, well, I'll disagree with, I think the vast majority of Republicans would disagree with that being truly a bipartisan thing, that the base of the Republican Party is very against this whole thing. Donald Trump is against this whole thing. I'm against this. And again, my opponent voted for the initial iteration of this, the January 6th Commission, something he defends to this day. So
when you heard those witnesses yesterday, did that have any effect on you?
We're focused on winning the election here, June 28th. Whatever is being said up at this sham committee is something that is pretty low on the totem pole of what we're paying attention to.
All right. Global affairs. The U.S. and our allies pouring millions of dollars in lethal and non-lethal aid to Ukraine as it battles Russia's military invasion. Your thoughts on that, your support? Do you support what we're doing for Ukraine right now? And what should we do to stop this war?
We should be pushing for peace. And that's something that nobody, hardly anybody on the left or the right is trying to do. That from the beginning, it was always banging the drums of war. That my opponent, he's voted for over $50 billion to give to Ukraine. He's voted to stop oil shipments into the country from Russia.
But your policies, do you agree with the aid that we're giving?
I'm fully against it, because it's not doing anything. It's causing more death, more suffering. It's harming our economy. The Russian economy is booming. All of these sanctions have only hurt the American taxpayer.
So you'd cut off the aid?
Yes. What we are doing right now, it is hurting Americans. It is hurting people at the gas pump. It's hurting them in terms of over the next year, we're going to see that the fertilizer that we haven't been able to get from Russia and Ukraine and Belarus, that we're not able to, around globally, have the same agricultural production that we had before. And this is going to kill hundreds of thousands of people in the third world because of a misguided foreign policy by our elites in the swamp.
So do you support any one of the parties in this?
Well, the Democratic Party is full in on this. The Republican Party is more split.
No, Ukraine or Russia, my fault.
Oh, between the Ukraine or Russia.
Yeah.
Certainly Ukraine. I would do not support any of the aggression of Putin, but that doesn't mean that we can't be clear-eyed about what the complex geopolitical situation actually is, and just having an open-ended commitment that is killing tens of thousands of Ukrainians and having millions of refugees. That's something that's not peaceful. That is causing much more pain and destruction than anything else would have been.
All right. Michael Cassidy, thank you